Dr. Caroline Mercer kept a locked file cabinet in the corner of her home office, but every night she carried the same 3 folders to the kitchen table anyway. The cases inside them haunted her children, who had survived abuse, who woke screaming or went mute for weeks, or traced endless circles in the sand of the clinic's dinosaur-themed sandbox. Under the chandelier's weak glow, she reread her notes, turning her professional composure into private worry. She was poring over Mia Hernandez's chart when a flourish of color slid across her peripheral vision. Her 8-year-old son, Ethan, padded into the room in his astronaut pajamas, wielding a fistful of crayons and a fresh sheet of craft paper. He didn't speak, just sat on the floor and began to draw with that peculiar urgency he showed only at night, as if a timer had been set in his skull. "Bedtime was half an hour ago," Caroline murmured, but the line was automatic and half-hearted. Ethan's drawings were how he soothed himself at a habit Caroline, being a child psychologist and a mother, chose not to discourage. A thicket of green triangles appeared under his small fingers. Trees, then a blue smear of sky, then red. Too much red. Thick waxy strokes converged on a stick figure lying crooked at the foot of a slide. Ethan pressed so hard the paper tore. Caroline knelt beside him. "That's vivid." He didn't look up. "It's the place behind the park." "The ravine?" Ethan nodded. "But it's darker tonight." She studied the picture. One detail chilled her. The stick figure's left arm was shorter than the right, bent in a permanent angle. Mia's left elbow had healed badly after her stepfather shoved her down a flight of stairs. It was in the clinical notes marked flexion contracture. Caroline smoothed Ethan's hair. "Who's that?" "I don't know yet," he whispered, as though the answer lived somewhere outside the room. "I just draw what I see." A shiver ran through her. She collected the paper and steered him back toward his bedroom. "Mom?" Ethan paused at the doorway. "If you could hear screaming inside your head, would you tell people?" "I'd try to help the one screaming," she said. He considered that. What if you help and it still happens? Before she could form a reply, he shut himself inside, the cheap wood hollow enough to thump like a heartbeat in her ears. Caroline chalked the unease up to occupational hazard. Her patient's traumas seeped into her personal life more often than she admitted. Nightmares, daymares, distorted flashes she'd seen colleagues burn out on exactly this stew of empathy and exhaustion. But the next morning, unease became dread, dressed in daylight. While Caroline made coffee, Ethan plucked the drawing from the counter and tucked it into his backpack between dinosaur folders. At drop-off, he kissed her cheek, unfussed, whereas Caroline's stomach rolled like a washing machine. The clinic, a renovated Victorian on Franklin Street, welcomed her with lemon disinfectant. By noon, she had led 3 therapy sessions, recorded notes, scheduled medication reviews. Mia was on the docket for 2 o'clock. Caroline brewed chamomile and arranged fidget toys on the couch. At 1:47, her mobile vibrated. Unknown number. She picked up. "Dr. Mercer?" a male voice asked, brittle. "I'm Detective Laird with the Lincoln Police Department. I'm afraid I have bad news about Mia Hernandez." The words that followed landed like hail on a tin roof. Mia's body had been discovered that morning by a dog walker at the bottom of the ravine behind Cedar Park. Preliminary scene suggested homicide. Time of death estimated after midnight. Caroline's mug slipped from her hand, smashing against the linoleum. Tea pooled like blood. She barely heard herself answer the detective's logistical questions. When the call ended, she walked to the staff restroom and vomited until nothing came but bile. The drawing. The red crayon. The misshapen left arm. She left early, citing family emergency. At home, she found Ethan building a block tower. He lifted calm eyes to her. "Did you help her?" he asked. Caroline knelt, heart hammering. "Mia's gone, honey." His tower collapsed in slow motion. He blinked once, twice. "I know. How could you know?" Instead of responding, he shuffled into his room, returning with another picture. This one showed a classroom littered with overturned desks. A child's stick figure lay under an open window. Cool night sky bled through the pane, speckled with stars that looked like pinwheels. The victim wore a polka-dotted skirt. The skirt was distinctive, like the one Shayna Patel, age 9, had worn proudly to her last session. Caroline's scalp prickled. "Did someone tell you about this?" "I dreamed it on the bus." "Ethan, these aren't dreams." Her voice cracked. "They're crimes. People are getting hurt." He hugged the paper to his chest, as if shielding it. "If I don't draw, it's worse." "Worse how?" "The pictures stay inside." She swallowed hard. Ethan rarely spoke so abstractly. Usually his mind was anchored to Legos and the rotation of the moon phases. She was trained to parse metaphor, but this felt literal. He was a conduit, somehow a radio tuned to a frequency she did not understand. Caroline sat awake that night, parsing possibility. Coincidence? She calculated combinations, permutations, any statistical math that could spare her reason. The numbers mocked her. She replayed every professional workshop about boundaries, dual relationships, mandated reporting. Who do you call when your own child is foretelling murders that involve your clients? There was no slide for that. At 3:12 a.m., she opened her laptop and searched psychiatric journals for precognitive art in minors. Results returned parapsychology blogs and sensational case studies. A boy who painted plane crashes hours before they occurred, a girl in Belarus whose chalk doodles corresponded to unsolved homicides. None provided methods, only fascination. At 4:07 she closed the computer and cried into her fists so Ethan wouldn't hear. Morning arrived raw and bleary. Caroline drove Ethan to school under a sky the shade of wet ash. Before he climbed out, she caught his elbow. "If you see anything today, anything you feel like drawing, tell me first. Promise?" He looked torn, like promise and peril were synonyms. Then he nodded. Traffic crawled. She rehearsed conversations with herself. Should she warn Shenna's parents? The police? Could she risk breaking confidentiality on a hunch carved in crayon? And what if Ethan's drawing made her a suspect? An accessory? She imagined Detective Laird flipping her license across a metal desk, asking how her son knew details never released to the press. Her phone rang. Clinic number. She braced herself, but it was the receptionist, voice hiccupy with fear. "Sheena Patel's mother just called. Sheena never came home from school yesterday." Caroline pulled to the shoulder, tire spitting gravel. She glimpsed cedar trees blurring beyond the windshield and felt the world tilt 15 degrees. She ended the call, heart ricocheting. Against every lecture she had ever given about professional distance, she turned the car toward Hawthorne Elementary. A cluster of patrol cars and anxious parents clogged the curb. Caroline flashed her ID and was waved past the tape by pure accident of authority. She recognized the intervening officer from a workshop on trauma-informed interviewing. Inside, the corridors smelled of pencil shavings and panic. Caroline found Detective Laird outside room 2B, where Sheena's homeroom teacher was sobbing into a floral handkerchief. The detective's gaze tightened. "Dr. Mercer, right? Not the best time for visitors." She took a breath, stepped closer, dropped her voice. "I think the person responsible for Mia may be targeting my other patients." "You have evidence of that?" She hesitated. Crayon drawings would shred her credibility. "Not tangible, no, but my caseload isn't public. Whoever's doing this knows which children are seeing me." Laird's skepticism flickered. Could a parent have leaked the info? Maybe. Caroline scanned the faces. Teachers, janitors, crisis counselors. Anyone could be orbiting her patients. "You have to put protection on a girl named Bria Lindstrom. 8 years old, lives off Manchester Drive." "Based on what?" "I can't explain yet, but please." "Doctor," Laird's voice was firm. "We work on probable cause, not premonition." He turned away, consigning her pleadings to the static of distant hallway clamor. Caroline fled before anyone could ask further questions. Her brain felt like a swarm too many wings beating to focus. She picked Ethan up early. He climbed into the back seat, backpack clutched tight, as though he sensed the weird gravity twisting adult faces all day. "I didn't draw," he announced, defensive. "Good," she exhaled. "But we need to talk." At home she made grilled cheese, comfort food, though none of it was easy to swallow. They ate in silence, broken only by clock ticks. Finally she said, "Do you know who the bad person is?" "I just see pictures." He traced crumbs with one finger. "Sometimes a voice tells me what color to use." That admission unraveled her voice. She pictured schizophrenia, auditory hallucinations, but symptoms at 8 were rare, and Ethan displayed none of the disorganization. Plus, real hallucinations didn't predict murders. She pulled out her therapy whiteboard and tried a technique from cognitive externalization. Let's give the picture voice a name. Does it feel like a person? Ethan considered. Like fog, but edges. She drew a vague outline of a human. Here? He shook his head. Edges like knives. Caroline capped the marker, knuckles whitening. We're going to make it stop. How? I'll figure it out. That night, Ethan crawled into her bed trembling. It won't let me sleep. She rocked him until his body became dead weight against her chest. When he finally dozed, Caroline crept to his room. In the half-dark, she rifled through his dresser until she uncovered a stack of drawings. Dozens, maybe 100. Forest scenes, basements, alleys, bathrooms. Each featured a child rendered with some identifying detail. Braces on stick-figure teeth, a wheelchair, a hearing aid. Flipping through, she recognized almost every current patient. At the bottom of the stack lay one final drawing. No child victim. Instead, adult stick figures, 3 of them, collapsed inside a ring of orange flame. One figure stood apart, tall and black, no features except a jagged red circle in its center, like a mouth mid-scream. Between its stick arms dangled a smaller figure, Ethan. Caroline's breath seized. She dropped the papers, waking the air into frantic rustles. Ethan stirred down the hall. She slid the drawings back, heart pounding, and returned to bed, brain circuitry sizzling. Dawn found her resolute. She called Shenny's parents, urged them to keep their daughter home. They were already on edge. Her warning was one more spark in dry grass. They agreed. At 10:02, Detective Laird rang. Tell girl was found an hour ago, safe. She'd crawled behind an AV cart in the music room after a scare. Locked herself in all night. We think she saw someone climb through the window. Caroline lashed onto the desk for balance. Someone? A male figure in a hoodie, according to her statement. We found muddy footprints. Her pulse drummed. You believe me now? I believe someone is after at least 2 of your patients. You said there was another potential target. Rhea Lindstrom. We'll post a unit outside her house. He paused. Dr. Mercer, how do your patients connect outside therapy? Same school district, sports, online forum? She sifted through memory. Some attend a weekly trauma group at the community center. Parents mingle in the lobby. Security cameras there? Only in the hallway, not in group rooms. Could be enough for our techs to pull footage if we get subpoenas. For the first time, she felt a sliver of forward motion. She relayed the director's contact number, then hung up, chest unknotted by a millimeter. Saturday morning, Caroline drove Ethan to her sister's farmhouse 2 counties away. Ostensibly a cousin sleepover, really a safe house. She needed Ethan off any radar. As they hugged goodbye, Ethan stared up at her, pupils huge. It's changing, he said. What is? The fog. It's mad. Stay with Aunt Rachel. Don't draw. He pressed his hands to the sides of his head as if to dam water. It's loud. She nearly buckled. But she kissed his forehead and climbed back into the car, tears blurring the gravel lane. On the return trip, Detective Laird called again. We ran footage, found a guy lurking in the lobby every Wednesday for the last 3 months. Matches the hoodie description. We traced his plates names, Jeffrey Sloan. Does that ring a bell? Caroline's fingers curled. Sloan. She yanked the car onto the shoulder, mind rewinding through years of files. Jeffrey Sloan was a stepfather, Mia's former guardian, the same brute who'd broken her elbow. He lost custody after charges, but was released on probation for cooperating in another case. A loophole. He has motive, she said. But he shouldn't know my other clients. Unless he tailed them from your office? Or followed you? A sick thud in her stomach. How many times had she walked blissfully unaware into the parking lot, Ethan dancing ahead of her like a kite? She pressed the gas harder, desperate to reach home, to rifle through mail, footage, anything. She found the front door ajar. Adrenaline vaulted her across the threshold. Living room. Couch cushions slit, TV askew. Down the hall, her office door splintered. Inside, patient files flung like thrown birds, pages storming the floor. Cabinet lock pried loose with a crowbar, left leaning against the bookcase. One file lay absent, Bria Lindstrom. Caroline's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You have something that belongs to me." Then a picture came through, a Polaroid of Ethan bound to a wooden chair in Rachel's basement. Behind him flickered a ring of orange flame propane. Heater, maybe. She saw terror in his wet cheeks, the outline of a jagged red circle spray-painted on the wall. Another text, "Bring Lindstrom kid to 145 Old Mill Road, midnight. Or he burns." Caroline's mind fractured into purple fear. She dialed Rachel. No answer. Again, voicemail. She called 9311, stammered an address, requested immediate dispatch. Then she called Laird, forwarded the photo, her voice a windstorm. "Stay put," he ordered. "We'll get your son." But Ethan's drawing, the one with flames and 3 adult bodies, flooded her vision. 3 bodies. Police? Aunt Rachel? Laird? She couldn't bank on authorities arriving in time. She snatched her keys. Old Mill Road uncoiled like a snake through abandoned textile district. Midnight fog hugged the road. Ethan's fog with edges. Caroline switched off headlights half a mile out. She dialed Laird, whispered coordinates, then slid the phone beneath her seat lest it ring. She crept toward an enormous warehouse, windows boarded, doors rusted. Pale light seethed through a gap. She tiptoed to a side entrance, heart slamming. Inside, he swaddled her. Propane heaters ringed a central space. Ethan sat gagged on a chair, cord binding his wrists, eyes wide. Sloane paced, hoodie masking half his face, crowbar in hand. "Dr. Mercer," he greeted, voice reedy. "Glad you can make family night." "I'm here." Caroline stepped forward, palms visible. "Let him go." "After we settle debts." He pointed the crowbar. "Bria Lindstrom's address. You think I'd use a child as barter?" Sloane snarled. "Those families testified I lost everything. You lost custody because you beat a 10-year-old. His eyes gleamed. "Kids lie." Caroline's jaw clenched. She surveyed the room. 3 propane heaters, each on a rickety stool. Propane plus crumbling paint could flash like napalm. 3 adult bodies, the drawn a warning. She needed to stall until backup burst in. But Sloane twitched. Impulse lurked behind his teeth like a snake with cracked patience. Caroline opted for truth. "You're not the only monster here, Sloane." He blinked. "Come again?" "My son draws pictures of your crimes before you commit them." Sloane scoffed until she slid Mia's crayon drawing from her coat. He inspected it, face paling. "How?" "He sees your intent, Jeffrey. Every heater, every knife edge. He's your mirror. Take him, and you'll be seen forever." Sloane's grip wavered. Caroline edged nearer to Ethan, untangling duct tape from her pocket, ready to lunge. Then, a distant siren, swelling. Sloane cursed, swung the crowbar at a heater, clipping the valve. A plume hissed. Flames licked. Caroline dove, knocking Ethan's chair sideways as Sloane fled toward a rear door. She threw her body over her son while fire mushroomed. The propane tanks howled. Windows burst inward. Battering rams smashed the front door. Laird and 2 officers stormed, silhouettes against swirling sparks. They dragged Caroline and Ethan out moments before the tanks detonated. A thunderclap that flung glass across vacant lots, coloring the night orange. Outside, EMS bundled them in blankets. Ethan clung to her, shaking. Laird reported they'd caught Sloane 2 blocks down, burned and bleeding from shards. Caroline stared at the inferno until her tears evaporated in its heat. She remembered Ethan's drawing of 3 adult bodies. Only Sloane had fallen tonight. The officers lived. Perhaps the drawing had shifted, malleable once witnessed. Maybe, she thought, the future was fewer inevitabilities and more fragile probability. Later, in a hospital corridor that smelled like plastic and hope, Ethan whispered, "Pictures are quiet now." Caroline smoothed his hair. "Why?" They can't find me through the smoke. She understood. Trauma breaks vision lines, sometimes forever, sometimes just long enough to alter the view. Sleep, she said. Ethan closed his eyes, breaths evening. Caroline watched the boy who carried nightmares for strangers and felt hers, all hers, hitch a ride on the same breeze that whisked hospital antiseptic into the starless Nebraska night. She didn't know if they were gone for good, but for this heart beat a small, pivoting miracle. They were silent,